One City of Tempe mayoral candidate and 5 council member candidates have been certified for the March 12th, 2024 primary election and May 21st, 2024 general ballot if needed, which will include 1 mayoral and 3 council member seats. Elected candidates will be sworn in to serve 4-year terms in July of 2024. Please appreciate and respect all the candidates and mayor for participating. If you can contain your wild exuberance for any one candidate, that would be appreciated. Although wild exuberance for Mayor Woods is allowed and encouraged. So do we want to practice that? All right, now I'm going to hand it over to our moderator for the evening, fellow Kiwanian, Don Fletcher.
I practice law. I represent landlords. And today I've spent 6 hours getting under the skin of a guy in a deposition. I'm glad to announce that we settled the case literally at 5:55 tonight. He was tired of my questioning and I raced over here. I'm not going to try to get in under anyone's skin today, but I hope we have some good answers, and we appreciate the opportunity to have these candidates here and participate with us. So thank you to our community members for being here. Thank you to these candidates. It's a big thing to run for office. It's a big thing to put yourself out there, and I can we just have a round of applause for all these candidates? It takes a lot to be a candidate. Thank you. The first question that we have, our trusted timer is going to time this, and I think the rules have been, I'll go down one way and then I'll come back the next way. I think those are the rules, right? Okay, the first question is, what's that? Okay. Were we going to have opening statements or? Okay, so each one of you have how much time for an opening? 1 minute. Okay, we'll start with you.
Good evening. Thank you to all 3 of the Kiwanis clubs for putting this on. My name is Nikki Amberg. I am a 25-year resident of Tempe. I moved here from Louisiana in 1998. I have spent my entire professional life in public policy on both the state level and the city level, my last stint being with the city of Tempe. I raised 4 of my beautiful children down here in Tempe. They've all gone through the public school system, so been incredibly involved in the community with those guys, both PTOs, Girl Scouts. I've been on several nonprofit boards, the Tempe Community Council Board, the National Charity League Board. I'm still on the Big Brothers Big Sisters of Central Arizona Board. So nonprofit fundraising is kind of my private passion. So I decided last spring that I'm going to try to meld both my public life and my private life and run for city council. So thank you.
Thank
you. She did that quite well. My name is Doreen Garland, and I have been on Tempe City Council for 3.5 years. Before I got on council, Nikki and I joke about we have our life seems parallel, but I also did a lot of volunteering in the community, 30 years of volunteering in Girl Scouts, Little League, PTOs, boards, commissions, and working at our church. So I have been involved in the community for a very long time. My husband and I raised our 4 kids in Tempe. And I am honored to say that we are now also helping to see our only grandchild raised in Tempe also, which also kind of gives me a little different perspective than when I ran the first time, is understanding, you know, that there are generations that are in Tempe, and wanting to make sure that I'm setting up our community to be able to look forward and do the right things now, but look forward also in our community for the members that'll be here. I've really enjoyed being on City Council, and I hope that I can continue to work with you as one of your choices for City Council in the next 4 years.
Thank you, Tempe Kiwanis, for putting this on. Thank you all for being here, and of course, city staff spending their evening here to make sure that all Tempeans have an opportunity to see this. I am Councilmember Randy Keating. You know it, but I'm going to say it, not related to Charles Keating. I am a member of Tempe Kiwanis, though unfortunately I have to work still, so I cannot attend the meetings, but more importantly, I do pay my dues. So believe me, I'm not happy about the work situation either. I'm hoping to fix that. I'm also a member of the Tempe Diablos, and I founded Tempe Young Professionals. I have a record that I'm going to be talking about quite a bit tonight that I'm excited to share with you. left, right, or center on the political spectrum, you can go to my website and find something that I did that you probably enjoyed. Maybe not you, sir, because I did do the source of income discrimination ban, which many landlords are not happy with. So I'm glad that you're a moderator, but not a voting member of the public. Anyway, I've got a lot to talk about tonight. I do want to hear what song is going to play for me, so I'm dragging it out. Randy Keating. Okay, good.
Same one.
Same one.
Good evening, and good to see everybody here. Thank you very much for coming out. This is important kind of stuff. It goes to civic engagement, and thank you for taking the time to come out. My name is David Lucier. I am a U.S. Army Special Forces Vietnam combat veteran. I've got civilian service in Iraq and Afghanistan. I was inducted in the Arizona Veterans Hall of Fame in 2009. My parents were veterans. But I came here to Arizona State University, graduated with honors in political science on the GI Bill, went and had a career in finance and banking, and came here and got involved in the community. It's police review. I co-founded the Veterans Commission here. I founded the Newtown CDC. So I've done and more. So thanks for coming out. Appreciate the time.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Hugo Tapia, and I'm a husband, a father, and a friend to many here in Tempe. And also, I'm a school psychologist, and I work for the Tempe Union High School District. I'm also part of the Human Relations Commission here at the city, and I am excited to be here. I'm not a politician, but I'm here because I want to contribute. And I want to contribute to a council that actually listens to the citizens of Tempe with transparency and actually with passion to help the community. And that's why I'm here, because I want to be a part of that. I want to really engage with the community on all of the issues that are being presented, and I'm excited. I'm excited to be here tonight. Thank you.
And good evening, my name is Corey Woods, finishing up my first term as mayor of the city of Tempe, and excited to stand before you to look for a second term. Prior to that, I was a member of the city council between 2008 and 2016. And I'm here because Tempe is a truly exceptional place, but I still believe that our best days are ahead of us. And so I'm just excited to be here this evening to take your questions, and so you have an opportunity to learn more about my record and some of the things I'd like to do in a second term, along with all the other candidates here. And so I wanted to once again thank Kiwanis for putting on this forum, and since I've got so much time left on the clock for the first time ever in my political life, I just want to give a huge shout out to someone who served for 16 years on the Tempe City Council. That's Councilmember Joel Navarro, who's right there in the third row. And with that, I'm done.
Corey, that's only because you talk so fast. But anyway, the first question, are we ready? When there is a proposed change in use for a given property, which would significantly change the neighborhood, such as with the Salvation Army move where notice was not given, what can be done to ensure the neighborhoods and neighbors are informed before any such change in use occurs? We'll start here. Craig? Okay, you're on.
So I think the most important thing we can do when any change to a use is being made, I think if the question is in reference specifically to the Salvation Army, if I remember correctly, the zoning did not change. It's just that the business that was there was changed. If there's a business change, typically the city does not make notices. If somebody was to purchase a building that used to be a nail salon and now it's going to be, it's going to sell shoes. If the use is still the same, that it's still a business, typically that's not something that the city would be sending information out about. It would be if they were going to change it, from a nail salon to housing for a medical care center. I think something like that might change, but for that I don't. But typically, I mean, the best thing for the city to do and anybody to be able to do is really communication. It's the outreach that we have in the city, and I think it's really, really important that at any time we are trying to do the best job that we possibly can to make sure that our residents know about businesses or changes in their community. And I think, we've got a really great, robust neighborhood services department that has been really helpful and has made a difference in the city of Tempe for us to be able to do the outreach that we need to in the communities. We've got great relationships with the presidents and directors and chairs of our neighborhood associations. So I think when changes happen, I think it's really important that we reach out to those groups and let them know if things are going to be changing in their community. I think, again, it just goes back to communication and being open.
Councilmember Garland is absolutely correct. The zoning didn't change, just the business that sat in that lot is changing. So this is not something that came to the city for approval or disapproval. In fact, we couldn't approve or deny that sort of change. Reminds me of a story. We once had a fast food restaurant in South Tempe that changed from whatever it was to a Raising Cane's. And a bunch of people came to our meeting and they were very upset about this because they didn't want, quote, a fried chicken joint next to their neighborhood. This is the one and only time that this has happened to me. I defended the place, and what Councilmember Garland just said, like, this is not a decision that we legally can delve into. Now, we can work to mitigate the concerns that you have through communication, through like proactive outreach by the ownership, as Councilmember Garland mentioned. But instead, at the end of it, I said, oh, and by the way, that chicken is delicious. And they booed me like you wouldn't believe. It's the one and only time I've been booed from the dais. But yes, Councilmember Garland's absolutely correct. It's about trying to mitigate those things. There was a gentleman, I forget his first name, but his name was Mr. Patel. He lives in that neighborhood. He reached out to me because he ran into a friend of mine and wanted to know like what he had to do. He was very concerned. So I put him in touch with the Salvation Army, and he got answers to the questions that he had, the concerns that he had. And it turns out that he misunderstood exactly what was going to be happening in his neighborhood, and they were able to come to a kind of a common ground and agree that, you know what, this isn't probably the worst thing ever. So, I do think it's about us as council members being proactive and listening to people's concerns and giving you the pathway to get those concerns addressed. Thank you.
Well, I'll start out by saying that council members come and go. And so while you may have some concerned and interactive council members now, you may not 4 years from now or 2 years from now, 10 years from now. I think it makes a whole lot of sense that when there's a change to your neighborhood or your, somewhere in the property, that people be notified. And I'm talking about requirements, not, hey, this would be really nice. I'm talking about requirements, and so that we not only force that communication within an area, but maybe even an expanded area, and open up those opportunities over a longer period of time. I mean, a lot of people work and can't make that 4:30 meeting at City Hall on a Thursday afternoon. So I think more guardrails, more enforcement. Here we got the Salvation Army. That was a funeral home. So what's the traffic patterns going to be? What's the use going to be? How is that going to impact the neighborhood? I think it's going to impact it a lot. That's not to say that it shouldn't happen, but I've lived in neighborhoods where the impacts were huge, and I don't want to see that happen elsewhere.
Well, I believe in proactive engagement. So, and I think that's critical when it comes to these types of moves of businesses around the city. And I think it's important that we actually, as council, we're engaged with what's going on with those particular issues that are happening around us. So my feeling is that communication from the community members and council is critical, so that way, oh, you gave me a bunch of time, so that's awesome. Now I can talk about all kinds of other things. But I think it really is about listening to the neighbors, listening to the neighborhood. What are the needs? What are the benefits of a business like that coming into the neighborhood? What are the challenges that are that are coming around that are going to be needed to be addressed and things like that. So I think that community engagement needs to be very active, and we need to continue to make sure that we have that robust neighborhood department that really deals with a lot of those things. I think that's actually critical for the betterment of our community. So I really want to emphasize that we, as council, we need to listen to what the community is telling us and then act on that for the benefit of both parties. Because I think we can be also mediators in a lot of those types of discussions, and I think it's important to do that because we can mitigate a lot of issues by doing that really robust mediation. So thank you.
Well, first off, I would say that I was not on the council when that Raising Cane situation happened, Councilmember Keating, but I can tell you the folks in South Tempe love that place because the line is always around the corner. But secondly, regarding the situation specifically with the Salvation Army, when it comes to certain kinds of buildings, if someone is changing the use of a building so much so that it involves a use permit, then absolutely the residents are notified. If people are going to make substantial modifications to the structure of the building, then also residents will get notified as well, whether that's going to be a commercial business or even a private home. If you're looking to add a second story to a house in the neighborhood, because that's a substantial change, residents in the immediate area will get a notification that those things are happening. But if something is taking place and basically you're occupying the same building and not doing an activity that triggers a use permit, people will not get notified for that reason. However, I did have a conversation with the Salvation Army around that time because as Councilmember Keating, I believe, noted, we wouldn't have had any ability to compel them to have a neighborhood meeting, but we did, myself and members of city management, have conversations with them and said it would be great just to be good neighbors because there is significant concern in the neighborhood to really reach out to the neighborhood leadership and have a conversation about when you're moving in and what are the services you're going to be providing. So even in that situation, even though it wasn't mandatory, we absolutely encouraged them to do that, and I believe they provided very good answers to a lot of the questions that were being raised.
I guess it's the great thing about going last is I'm pretty much just going to echo what everybody up here said. Absolutely, the city can be a partner in fostering dialogue between the neighbors about their concerns and the folks that are moving in and the folks that are moving out, and do a lot of this ahead of time because I think that way it will alleviate a lot of the concerns. In South Tempe, on the other corner from where Raising Cane's was, there used to be a gas station, and they sold that to an oil change place. And believe me, everyone that lived down there up in arms, came to the DRC meetings, came to city council, but in the end, legally, there was really nothing that the city council could do about it, even if they wanted to oppose that project, because it was private property rights and they weren't asking for a change in zoning. So I think had that been, kind of told to a lot of the neighbors ahead of time that that wasn't going to be a possibility, that would have lessened a lot of the angst that was going on down there. I will say I live near there. I very rarely see anybody at that oil change place. So, but hopefully they're still doing pretty well. And for Raising Cane's, as the mom of 4 teenagers that live down there, they do frequent that a lot. Matter of fact, I think my 16-year-old is going to be going there tonight after she gets out of lacrosse practice because I'm not going to be home for dinner again. But yes, absolutely fostering, communication is key, and doing it ahead of time will go a long way towards alleviating a lot of the angst.
Well, thank you very much for those thoughtful and insightful answers. Let's go on to question number 2. Who will be the first one this time? Okay, great. By state law, all cities and towns must prepare or revise their general plan every 10 years. At a prior candidates forum, the mayor and all 5 candidates said they supported the proposed 2050 general plan, which will be on the ballot for voter approval in March. Please share with us 1 or 2 of the items from the 2050 plan that you like, and please tell us why you like it.
Absolutely. So for those that don't know, the general plan is a kind of a living document that kind of shapes the long-term future of Tempe, or so we hope. And it was born of not only staff and stakeholder input, but a community working group of neighbors, of thought leaders, of city staff members, people from all walks of life that were interested in shaping Tempe. So they came together, they came up with a plan, and that community working group voted to approve that plan. That plan then goes to the general public for ratification. It will do a lot of things in Tempe, which I feel are positive, but since you asked for two, I'll give you two. It will increase our sustainability efforts significantly. Under the General Plan 2040, we did not have an Office of Sustainability. We did not have the water and energy conservation goals that we have today. Not only does that codify those plans, but it also creates a pathway to make them more aggressive as the future moves forward. So that's obviously a huge benefit as we continue to deal with the changing climate and growing region. Another thing it does is it increases the city's money we spend, I can't think of the word, on multimodal transportation, things like bike lanes, on the light rail, and on the streetcar. We are adding more options for Tempeans to get around our city every single year, and the 2050 general plan accelerates that as we work harder and harder to not only reach Vision Zero, but get as many cars, polluting cars, off the streets as we can. Thank you.
Well, first of all, let's be clear, the general plan is almost 400 pages long. So that's a lot of stuff. And believe me, there's a lot of good stuff in there. But the 2050 plan really is, in fact, the 2024 plan. So we don't wait till 2050 to implement this stuff. I want to correct one thing. When I said I supported this, it was a really qualified acceptance of that plan, and said, wanted to reserve the right to look deeper into it. Well, I have, and to me, there's a fatal flaw in it, and it's huge. And I think that it's page 162. There it is. You can go see it yourself. It's called the 20-Minute City, which was developed in Australia and has been resoundingly rejected by all the city planners there. But the big thing is a bullet point: transit-oriented development that promotes high density and mixed uses in the immediate vicinity and within about a quarter mile of transit services. That's a quarter mile going both ways, so you got a half-mile swath. If you make circles, that's going to encompass about 80% of the land mass at Tempe. That's a huge fatal flaw, and that will be available to developers this year. It's a developer's dream.
One of the things that I think about when I think about the general plan as it is that it was put on by and reviewed by our citizens. I was the chair of the Human Relations Commission, and we actually had commissioners that were participants in that discussion. And I have the utmost respect for their participation in that process. I also attended a number of those meetings, and I saw the robust discussion that was part of that. So that's one of the reasons why I support the plan, because I think the community was involved in that process. The issue that Mr. Lucier talks about, it is part of the concerns that I may have also as well. But what I really do like about the plan is that it's a living document. And it actually states in the plan that it's a living document. And what that means to me is that city council and mayor have really the authority also as well to review it if there's something that is not appropriate for what is happening here in our city and what is being presented to us. A living document, that's really what it means. It's that you can actually make decisions that are in the best interest of the community.
So Couple of things. I really love the improvements to bicycle infrastructure and sustainability that are in the 2050 plan that, as Councilmember Keating rightly pointed out, none of the sustainability information was there because we didn't have a sustainability commission when the previous general plan was passed. We didn't have a sustainability and resilience department when the previous general plan was passed. It includes more protected and buffered bike lanes, which I also think are really critically important for residents getting around, whether it's to work or just for the purposes of exercise or leisure. And I think there's tremendous upgrades when it comes to housing in the affordable workforce and market rate categories. But I did want to speak to one thing that Mr. Lucier talked about with page 162. The big thing from my perspective is not that one line in the document, it's the maps. The land use maps in all of those areas specifically spell out what the community working group and what the technical advisory group, as well as the DRC and Development Review Commission and the council actually intended. And there was no intent from any of those groups, from the citizen members, to the staff, to the council, to put high density housing in every portion of the city. That is specifically reserved for the downtown. I will also say as well that the language in page 162 that's in the proposed General Plan 2050 is the identical language in General Plan 2040 that we've been living under for the last 10 years. So if the council had wanted to actually do that, they could have done it now and you'd have 20-story buildings everywhere. But that was never the intent, and the language is exactly the same. So you know what the intent of the council is.
Yes, I am in support of the 2050 plan, and actually, if you got your pamphlet in the mail, I actually submitted a statement for that. Two of the things that I really like in this plan are the historic preservation aspect of it, and again, the sustainability, which has never been in there. From a historic preservation standpoint, you know, they talk about IDing these historic properties. They talk about ensuring that any new developments around there take those historic properties into account. They talk about ensuring that any changes in the, actually discourages any changes in designs that are incompatible with those historic properties. And they also include the Native American tribes in it as well. And it's not just historic properties, but it's also the architectural, the architectural resources, archaeological resources, excuse me, in those areas. And in terms of the sustainability, I think it's fantastic that it was in there. The part that I was really excited about was the green stormwater initiatives. I live in South Tempe. We don't have a sewer system, so we are actually required to retain all of the water onto our property whenever it rains. And I would love to see that in a lot of the new development, and they've got that language in there, and I think it's just fantastic.
Thank you. I can use her last 14 seconds, right? Did she defer those to me? So, thank you. So I completely support the 2050 plan. I love the outreach and engagement that was a part of this plan over the last 2 years of doing it. It was community organizations, it was community leaderships, it was business leaders. We had a 2050 commission. There were a lot of people that were involved in this. And the great thing is that our staff was very thick-skinned and heard all of the good and the bad that came from some of those meetings, and we were able to make, or they were able to make, changes. So there were changes that were made to the plan, and I have to say that I think that that's really important. Again, we're making sure that we do a lot of outreach and have given our residents a lot of opportunity to be able to look through this and be a part of the process to make this happen. The two things that I really like, we already talked about the sustainability. I think that's a really important part of this, but I also think regarding the historic preservation, as Ms. Amberg was saying, is the cultural resource areas. Again, that's another thing that we are looking at designating so that we are protecting those buildings and structures and areas around the city of Tempe that need the protection that didn't have it before. So I think the sustainability, the bike infrastructure, and then the cultural resource areas are my favorite things. Oh, I said 3, sorry.
I should get another.
I'm sorry, I wanted to hear the music, but. Question number 3. Will all the incumbents please raise your hand? Okay, this is a question for you. All of the newcomers raise your hand. Okay. Well, I'll read the question first for the incumbents and then for the newcomers, and we can keep the same sequence. So for the incumbents, please name 2 things that you are most proud of from your prior term or terms and explain why. For the newcomers, please explain 2 things that you hope to accomplish if elected, and please tell us why you chose those 2 items. So who are we down to? Okay. You're the newcomer.
Thank you. Well, there's a couple of things that I'd like to see the city do, and one is get in the business of affordable housing and workforce housing. I mean, get in the business. They're in a perfect position to. I think that they've got a good foundational structure to be able to take that take it to the next level. And we need to do that. I've had a lot of experience in that area in the veterans community. You strike out the word veteran and just put in there, regular citizen, it really doesn't make any difference. There's a system, there's models, and there's plenty of resources to go around. So that's hugely important. The other thing is I want to see more responsible development in this city. What I would call irresponsible development has taken a real toll on the city. And so I've got some definite ideas on how to do that, and they require probably more legal structure. We need more communication between neighbors and developers, not just so that somebody comes by, shows you the bright shiny object, and then you criticize it constructively and then say, oh, well, it's a done deal, and then walk. I think that's got to stop.
I think I'm next. One of the things that I think about when I was hearing the question is really why I really decided to run, and I decided to run for city council because I saw a significant disengagement with certain communities here in our city, and communities that continue to be marginalized, and I want to make sure that there's a voice that is being heard and that we bring that voice to the council. And that's, to me, that's critical and that's important. It still continues to happen here in Tempe, even though at times we don't see that on a daily basis. And our homeless population is one of those marginalized communities that are part of who we are. The other one that I really want to address is really our youth development. We have to pay attention to what's going on to our youth. And we have to develop collaborations with not just within our city, but also with our community partners and the educational system to make sure that we have a path that is going to be a path of success for those youth that are coming up. I'm really hopeful for them, but I want to make sure that we're paying attention to their difficulties. So, thank you.
So 2 things. First, on the affordable housing side, our Hometown for All program, which actually created a sustainable, dedicated revenue stream to create affordable and workforce housing options in the city of Tempe, I think is very critical. I think it's not important to just simply get up and talk about supporting attainable housing, but if you're not putting your money where your mouth is, it's frankly just empty talk. And I'm really glad the council that we've been part of has actually stepped up and created that revenue stream. And we're going to be talking tomorrow night at our council meeting about putting on a $32 million bond question this coming November for voters to approve so we can greatly accelerate those efforts. The other thing I would talk about would be, though, pertaining to unsheltered homelessness. We have seen in the last 12 to 18 months a 30% reduction in unsheltered homelessness throughout the city. That's largely because of our investment in transitional shelter with the acquisition of the Roadway Inn, which is now Sue's Espacio on Apache Boulevard. Also the doubling of the Hope and Care 7 team units that are dedicated human services professionals who do an exceptional job of interacting with people who are either currently unsheltered or folks who are experiencing mental health challenges. And so I think that's really critical. I'm excited about that, especially though, because I remember when I started as mayor, hearing from a lot of residents and small business owners, I'm concerned that I don't feel like I can use my park anymore. I'm concerned that my small business doesn't have the ability to operate. We want to be humane, but I still want to make sure I can run my business or my kids can use the park. And I'm really glad that we're making real progress in those areas.
Could be hearing that song whenever I go to sleep tonight. So I think two of the things that I would like to hope that I can accomplish if we're lucky enough to get your vote and get on City Council. One thing, what Corey was talking about, the homelessness solutions that the City of Tempe is doing has been fantastic. I think the HOPE team, the CARE 7 team, in conjunction with the police department, they've gone a long way towards trying to alleviate a lot of the problems that are out there. I would like to kind of focus more of all of those efforts on a regional approach so that it's not just the City of Tempe doing these fantastic programs. It's also the City of Phoenix, it's the City of Scottsdale, Mesa, Chandler, because, you know, this population doesn't really care if they're in Tempe, if they're in Phoenix, and we're not going to make much of a dent from a regional approach by just keeping these fantastic programs in the City of Tempe, these programs that are working wonders with our local nonprofit groups. The second thing is I came to the community budget meeting last night with some of the city staff, and I see a few folks here that were here last night as well, with facing a $20 million shortfall because of the no longer being able to tax long-term rentals and whatever other shenanigans is going to come out of this legislature in terms of trying to alleviate their budget crisis. I would like to kind of focus on a lot of the core city services, your police, your fire, your streets, and then maybe even start working a little bit more with our nonprofits to help alleviate some of the other problems when it comes to the human services.
Asking me to pick two is like asking me to pick which is my favorite child out of my four. So this was a little hard. I will say that, you know, you can't make decisions and make things happen in the city unless you have some, at least majority of support from your council colleagues. So a lot of things that we're talking about was done. Somebody might have brought it up, but we all take part in the success of it and seeing it get voted to support and move forward. So I'll say one of them was championing a proposed mid-year addition to our budget was a $3.7 million to add CARE 7 and HOPE Team 24/7 coverage in the city of Tempe. We did not have 24/7 coverage, so in the mid-year I brought up a proposal to do that, and we passed that, and so that has made a significant difference, I think, in the community. The other one is the relaunching of the Vision Zero that Councilmember Navarro and I did in our council committee, which is really, again, it's doing what we can to protect the residents in the city of Tempe by really looking at what we're doing on our roads regarding biking safety and driving safety. I mean, I will just say, so those are two, but since I have time, I'll say real quick. The other one is that I'm proud of, just from my heritage part of, is being able to get the land acknowledgement resolution passed in the city of Tempe. The great thing about the land acknowledgement resolution is it was not written by the city of Tempe, it was written by the 4 southern tribes that surround us. So it is their words in ways that we can honor them, and that has turned us to be able to have a permanent position on the Historic Preservation Commission that is Native, and then also being able to, now when somebody puts in a proposal that wants to design something in the city of Tempe for art, if first design comes up and it says that it's for Tempe residents, it get first preference, second, and then it also says the other first preference is to a Native resident. Ooh, I got another minute and 30 seconds. I'm gonna keep going.
So yeah, the things I'm most proud of, one would be Tempe Works, and that is Tempe's first in the nation model for a homeless work program. And what that does is that says to homeless individuals, hey, we'll give you a full-time job, we'll give you housing, we'll give you shoes if you need it, we'll get you a bank account, a driver's license. We'll give you the opportunity to full self-sufficiency if just you'll take it. One of our first people to participate in that program was a Navy veteran who got discharged because he had hurt himself. And they gave him OxyContin for his pain. Once he's out of the Navy, they don't refill your OxyContin, unfortunately, so he got addicted to heroin. Surprisingly, heroin is cheaper than buying OxyContin, which is shocking. And anyway, he participated in the program, he graduated, he got a full-time job, moved on, got a job outside of the city, and last time I saw him, he was engaged to be married. So we're changing lives there. Another one is Tempe Pre. Tempe Pre does an amazing, no one will debate the need for early childhood education, but what we don't talk about is the secondary and tertiary economic benefits of that. When your child is now in school, you can work more hours. Both Both parents can go to work, they can go to school, they can work to secure more housing. I was a deciding vote on that. I called in one of my first meetings from a casino to vote yes on that. It was 4-3, and I kept it alive all this time, and finally this year, we finally made it a permanent fixture of our budget, so students will never have to worry, parents will never have to worry. Tempe Pre will exist from now on.
Thank you very much. You just want to hear that music, didn't you, Randy? Next question. Given the, and we've talked about this issue quite a bit. I know several of you have brought up this issue about affordability and housing and whatnot. This is regarding our seniors. Given the vulnerabilities for at-risk seniors to potentially lose their housing through rent increases or other unforeseen hardships, what can be done to include senior housing in the city's plan for affordable housing?
Well, I believe that it's critical that we pay attention to that particular issue. I'm knocking on doors and I'm talking to people that are really in the verge of losing their homes, and it's something that we need to have a path. Just as we do with any other population, we need to make sure that the city has the ability to help individuals that are in those situations, to make sure that they don't go into homelessness, because that is not what we intend for our elderly population. We have to make sure it is our responsibility, I think as a community, to make sure that we're taking care of those that took care of us. So that's to me, that's critical. I will always engage in those conversations because I think it's critical that we pay attention to that and that we create a path that is going to assure that they're not going to have those experiences in the future. So I think it's really about making sure that there's that path for them to follow, and we're going to be right there with them. Thank you.
So I would first say, oh, there we go. So I would first say that we have to encourage more development such as Encore on Farmer in downtown Tempe. That was one of the first developments I was involved with, and it is senior housing for seniors living right in the middle of downtown, which is arguably one of the most expensive places in the entire community. But I know several people who still live in that building and have the ability to keep a roof over their heads because of really revolutionary developments like that one. It really is critically important because the fastest growing group of people who are becoming homeless due to rising rent costs and rising costs in general are our seniors. And people as they get into their 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s should not have to experience homelessness after working their whole lives and raising children and contributing to our society. But it also means that we have to do things as a city, not just internally, but also work with the state legislature to really overturn things that have been very challenging, like the inability to do things like rent stabilization policies. Because that was one of the things I heard from a lot of seniors over the COVID-19 pandemic. My rent's going up 20, 25, 30%. I can't make any more money. There's no way I can afford this. And I think we have to work with the state legislature and the governor's office to see if we can actually find some way to allow for some kind of rent stabilization to provide our seniors with some additional support. And lastly, I'll say just really quickly, accessory dwelling units. I'm just reading an article right now, a report from the AARP and the American Planning Association about the importance of multi-generational living and how changing zoning can allow people to continue looking after their parents when they get older.
So I'm going to echo with Corey, the accessory dwelling units, I'm so sorry, is I think is one tool in the toolbox to help this. I've got a neighbor who is actually building one in their backyard, and their plan is for the two of them to move into that. And then once that is done, then their daughter and her family are going to move into their primary home. I absolutely think that, we absolutely need to help this community. The TCAA, I don't know if a lot of people know this, they piloted a program that I would love to see expanded where it's almost like a senior matching program where if you've got a senior living in a house and they've got 2 empty bedrooms, why not try to match them with 2 other seniors who are also trying to find a place to live, just to help those folks, pay their mortgage, and it's going to be a livable rent that they're going to be able to afford. And I also would like to say just one thing, that if we are going to talk about senior living in terms of affordable housing and building new areas, we also need to keep into mind the fact that, these senior facilities are going to be different than what you are going to be seeing in other affordable houses that are being built. They have special needs. Their needs are completely different than the needs of say a 25-year-old brand new family with kids. So those things are going to need to be really incorporated into any plan that the city does in the future.
When I was at the National League of Cities conference, we were listening to somebody talk about affordable housing and ADUs, and they started talking about something I thought was just fascinated with, is building senior living in your community next to daycares, so that the seniors in their free time would go down and help take care of the kids at the daycares. And the love of an exchange between those 2 ages, I think, is absolutely darling. But I like that idea, and I think that's really important. But I do think we do need to be looking at, and the city has looked at in the past, about what we could do for additional housing for seniors. I think that it's really important for us to not only be looking at that, but then also, I'm looking at the seniors that we have right now. What are we doing to try to support our seniors? And TCAA is an organization that is helping with that, but it is trying to make sure that they can stay in their home. And the mayor had some good suggestions about trying to do something with the legislature, which would be very helpful for us. I think, the other thing to be able to look at is, for our seniors, is also, when I was delivering Meals on Wheels here in Tempe, is the seniors that are shut in. I think we need to do a little bit better job about caring for the people that we have in our community, also our seniors that are shut in their homes, and that have a difficult time getting out. Going and dropping off a meal, I was giving a schedule on when I was supposed to do it, but it's really hard to do that because they want to talk, and you want to talk to them and just give them that time. So I just think that we need to be looking at senior housing, but I think we also need to be looking at the people who are shut in.
It says 1 second. Oh, okay, thank you. Okay. Well, in that case, the mayor really stole my thunder with Encore and ADUs, so I'll definitely talk about that in a little bit too. But I do want to mention that I was part of the working group that brought Tempe to dementia-friendly city status way back when, probably like 6 years ago. So this is an important issue. Aging in place is an important issue in the city. Everyone deserves to age in the spot where they want to, right? So there are other things we can do as far as increasing affordability for senior housing. Some of those things are like the Tempe Maker District and the Smith Industrial District. It says industrial, but it is mixed use, where the land is close to downtown, but it's not so expensive that we actually can build workforce and affordable housing on that land, as just market conditions allow for that. And the Tempe Maker District is one of those areas that we are doing it. ADUs in particular is an item that's very important to me. Look, I'm 41 years old. My parents are getting to their mid-70s, and they're not in good health. There will come a day, as the oldest son, when one of them, or hopefully not both, are going to have to look to me for some sort of assistance. And look, I'm a middle-class guy from a working-class family. That house ain't big enough for the 3 of us. So I think this is something that folks around my age are kind of looking at. What are we going to do here as the population is going to continue to age? How are we making sure that Tempe is opening and welcoming of senior citizens, and how can we as younger people like me ensure that our parents are taken care of in a reasonable way, in an affordable way, without sharing my kitchen?
I think the conversation here demonstrates the complexity and the overlays whenever we talk about affordable housing. Is it affordable for whom? Men, women, deaf, blind, seniors, veterans, the list goes on. And so we need to be prepared for all of these eventualities. And we got to make sure that we have a model in place to do that. And so I want to be prepared for the future. I don't know exactly what the future brings. I mean, we know that people are getting older. I guess maybe I'm a prime example. And so we have to be prepared for these. Real quick, the veteran story that I have is, when several years ago when people started coming back from the Middle East, a lot of them were women. And you know how many OBGYNs we had at the VA? 0. We weren't prepared. We need to be prepared for all these things. And it isn't going to be easy. It's complex. It's going to take everybody's input in order to come up with, I think, a good answer. And I want to be part of that.
You can't restart the clock?
No, I think we're next question.
I think we're ready for the next question. Okay, Janie, you have 3 seconds on your clock. No, it starts when the speaker... okay, all right. I don't want to cut anyone off here. And anyone panic, you got 3 seconds. This next question, we've had some really important issues. This one's a little bit more lighthearted here for a few moments. Please share a story about your personal journey, either as a sitting member of the council or candidate, that was the funniest thing that happened to you when you experienced this, and what touched you the most, and what has surprised you the most?
The funniest story I can easily tell. There was a person, this is not going to sound funny when I start, but I promise it will be. A lot of folks know that my mother unfortunately passed away 12 years ago due to ovarian cancer. And during a meeting when we were first talking about recreational marijuana in the city of Tempe, a gentleman came forward after I had told the story about my mother. It was very tragic. She was about probably 6 months from passing. He came up to the front and said, "Sir, I want to tell you and the entire council that I've been illegally growing marijuana in my home for the last 12 years. And I thought, why in the world is this guy snitching on himself in front of the entire council? The police chief sitting right here in the back. And then after he left, I basically, moved away from the whole thing. And about a couple of days later, he sent me an email at work and said, Mayor Woods, I'm really sorry, Mayor Councilmember Woods, I'm really sorry to hear about your mother. But if you still need some marijuana, I'll be happy to help provide some to you. I'm like, now this guy's trying to sell me weed over a city email address. That was hands down the funniest story I could probably ever tell. So given that I only have 20 seconds, I'll probably stop right there.
I started my spiel earlier today saying that I've got 4 beautiful children, and I have literally in the last 21 years been referred to as Miss Amberg, Miss Nikki, Tyler's mom, Jessica's mom, Blake's mom, Julian's mom. But I did not expect whenever I was going and knocking on doors to knock on some doors and some 20-year-olds answered the door and they looked at me and were just like, I have one question for you. Are you Tyler's mom? And I'm like, yes. Does that mean you're going to put a yard sign in front of your yard? So I still can't even get away from that, even though there are signs all over the city that actually proclaim my name as being Nikki Amberg, not Tyler Amberg's mom or Jessica Amberg's mom. One of the things that I actually do love about knocking on doors that I've been surprised, I've heard so many horror stories from other candidates in the past about folks that have been answering the doors, is just the fantastic attitudes that I would say well over 90-95% of the Tempeans that answer their door for me have been. They have been willing to listen to me. They have been willing to let me listen to them. They have been incredibly cordial, even though we don't always agree on issues. I have been absolutely just been enamored of that. As somebody that worked at the state legislature, that does not happen very often. And I really want to, if I am on city council, just to keep that attitude in terms of listening to everybody and making sure that all of the viewpoints are heard, even if it's not something that I necessarily agree with.
I can think of one thing that was silly, and I can name a number of things that I love. I love being on council. I love working with our residents. I love knocking on doors. It makes you, when you meet people and you meet new people and you learn about their life and you learn about what they're interested in, it revitalizes me on why I'm doing this job and why I want to work really hard for everybody. But I will say the silliest thing was, I don't want to encourage this, but the puppet guy that came to the council meeting, he came up and he looked like a regular, normal person, and He was dressed in his suit, if I remember, then all of a sudden, in the middle of his 3 minutes, got a puppet up, and the puppet started speaking, and he was like a ventriloquist, and it was trying to sit on council and not laugh because you don't want to encourage him, but trying to pay attention to him. I honestly was sitting there, it's like, oh, Doreen, don't burst out laughing, don't burst out laughing. So I'd say that was a pretty silly thing. You know, and I think actually working with my council members too, you know, we have very strong discussions with each other. Sometimes during executive session, you don't see all of that, but we can laugh and tease each other later and enjoy the time together where we're learning about issues, but actually being able to walk away as still friends and respectful colleagues. I think that is one of those things that I absolutely love. I got a great group of people you work with. That's all I have.
Well, I already told my Raising Cane's story, so here's a few more that I thought of. During my first campaign, a gentleman, he was a larger gentleman, answered the door when I knocked, and he was clearly like in a tanning bed, full thong, banana hammock, had the glasses on. He answered his door like that, but then had like an extended conversation with me for like 15 minutes. And I'm holding my clipboard like this. I'm like, you want to put a towel on, anything? Like, what's going on here? So he actually asked very thoughtful questions and nuanced questions about the city. So I wonder if he was staff. I don't know. It was my first campaign. Anyway, he signed my petition, and I went along. This campaign, I knocked a door, and this guy, it took him like 5 minutes to get to the door. All right, this is like 10:45 in the morning. Knocked the door, and I hear the dog barking. I hear yell, shut up, I'm coming. Finally, like, I'm just getting out of here. I start walking away. Finally, he opens the door. Clearly, I'd woken this gentleman up. And he steps outside and says, yeah, what's going on? I'm like, oh, hey, I'm Councilmember Randy Keating. And he's like, well, I don't got time for any of that. And goes back inside. So then I was like, who did he think I was? Like, he answers the door for a guy trying to sell you solar panels, but when your councilman shows up, it's like, I go back to bed. Anyway, I thought that was pretty funny. And the guy who called in, too, the kind of your story, talking about how it was a joke, obviously, a guy DUI'd, he was talking about how he picked up a girl, was getting hot and heavy. Then they turned it off, and me and Vice Mayor Adams looked at the story, and were like, I wanted to hear the end of that story. It's just getting good.
Years ago at the one of the council meetings, and it was about bicycle lanes on McClintock, and so boy, everybody was just one side or the other, and the discussion was pretty hot and heavy, and I had submitted my name. I knew that I wanted to go speak about it because I'm a bicyclist and. I've ridden all over the world and all over Arizona. So this was a subject of a lot of interest, but I didn't really know exactly what I should say. And so about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I thought, well, I'm gonna search the internet and see if I can't find something that'll conjure up some feeling. So I looked and looked and looked, and I took bits and pieces of poems about bicycles and put together a poem about bicycles and about how we loved them when we were young and what it meant to us and the sense of freedom that we had. And so I read the poem, and I think it was deeply appreciated, and it seemed like the temperature in the room dropped. And I thought, that's pretty cool. I like that.
The coolest thing about knocking on doors is that you meet so many wonderful people. And it was about 115, almost 120 over the summer. And I knocked on this door, and this elderly, very elderly lady opens the door and looks at me. I have my hat on, and I'm all sweaty. And she says to me, what do you want? And I said, well, you know, and I give her my spiel, and she says, I'm not voting for you. You're stupid. And that's what she said. She said, you're stupid. And I'm shocked, right? So, and then we start kind of talking and stuff, and I could tell that she was kind of joking with me, but then I wasn't sure. So, so she said, well, look at you, how would I vote for you? Look what, you're out here in 115-degree weather and you're like getting signatures. You're dumb. You're stupid. I'm not voting for you. Like, and I was like, but give me that, she says. And then she says, I'm going to sign it just because you're all sweaty. And that stuff. But I had a very heartwarming experience, and I know I only have 10 seconds, but the other day I was at an event, and I met a young man who came to the event and was a client of mine 27 years ago. When I worked here at the library in the city in social services, and he said to me, which I think I already won this race, he said to me, Hugo, you showed up for me when I was 14, and I'm showing up for you now. And that was so heartwarming, because the kid was 14 years old at the time, and now he's a 41-year-old banker. And it was the most wonderful thing that I've experienced. So that's why I already won. So.
This is a long one. If you need to take notes, I understand. I didn't write these, but have your pens ready. The Tempe City Council has designated Tempe Community Council's community to lead the agency review process to make recommendations which community organizations will receive the city's human resources funding and how much each organization will receive. Recommended funding amounts are consistently below the amounts requested for identified projects. Question: how should the city decide the amounts of money allocated for human services organizations? Also, should the agency review funding decisions be required to be strongly weighed with the city's current highest priorities, homelessness, affordable housing, to the exclusion of other population needs, our youth, elderly, etc.? Now, in a court of law, I'd have that question read back. Do you guys understand the question? Okay, great. Thank you.
Why do I always get those when I'm the first one answering? So I actually was on the Tempe Community Council Board in the 2000s, and in one of those years, I did actually chair the agency review, so I'm very, very, very well rehearsed in what's going on. I think it is a fantastic process. I would highly recommend that this city not move away from that process. It is nonpartisan. It is strictly Tempe resident driven. It's the Tempe residents that are actually doing all of the interviewing. In terms of how the city decides on the amounts, I mean, the city gets a set amount of money from the federal and state grants and a specific amount of money from the general fund, so I'm not really sure how much wiggle room you've got going on in there. I know that there is always way more people asking for more money than we actually do, and I have to say, as someone that, fundraises for nonprofits, I've been on both sides, and we always ask for more than what we actually think that we're going to get whenever we go into a grant program. So whenever you're deciding that allocation, that really kind of needs to go in the back of your mind. In terms of allocating for specific, areas each year, I think that's okay, but one of the things that I think that the city needs to continue to focus on, and I know that's always been a priority for agency review, is ensuring that the money is going to nonprofits that are working with the residents in the city of Tempe, that those dollars are going for folks that are living in here and folks that are getting those services. So ensuring that we actually focus on Tempe residents and the number of Tempe clients that are being served would be my preference.
I think the community needs assessment that is getting done now with the Tempe Community Council is a great way for them to be able to look at the services and the needs in our community. It gets done every 3 years. The last one, you can go on to the Tempe Community Tempe Community Council's website and you can pull up their community needs assessment. It is amazing the information that they are able to gather so that they can use that information to look forward on what we're going to be able to do, what they're going to be able to do with those monies. For the past few years, the city has been out of the general fund. We give $1.1 million each year. The needs are higher, and that number has not increased. That is something that the city, I know that we have talked about, that we do need to be looking at. But I think the other thing is, a lot of this is in your hands. When you get your water bill and it says on there, would you like to give an extra $1 to Community Works? That dollar goes directly to Tempe Community Council and to the funds that get sent out. If you simply change that to $5 or to $10 each month, that money goes directly to them and it snowballs. It just increases with everybody who's able to do this. Right now, if you think about the residents that we have and how many people we have in the city of Tempe, how many water bills there are for residents, how many water bills there are apartments, how many water bills there are for businesses, what they usually get in is between $30,000 and $60,000 in a year. That just comes out of your water bill, and that we could do so much better as a community. Those agencies that they're using, that they're looking at, to have such a benefit in this community that we really need to add to that dollar. So please try to do that.
Tempe agency review is such an important part of our process. It takes the politics out of it. Therefore, if you're a charity and we're friends and you want money, I'm not dictating how much money goes where. A group of citizens is doing that. And I think that's very important for transparency and for fairness reasons, 100%. So I wouldn't support any change to the agency review system whatsoever. I do agree that we need to increase funding. In fact, I brought this up, and I know Councilmember Garland has as well. The amount that we give to agency review has not gone up since 2003. We should tie that to inflation and make that adjustment and then make it permanently so that every year, whatever the inflationary index is, that's the amount of money we go to increase to those services. I think that's the fairest way to make sure that we have our set amount, but the dollar power that process is getting will stay the same. And so there used to be pushes, let's make it $5 million this year, let's make it $10 million this year. Obviously, the city can't afford that, but we can plan for something like that to make sure that those services are getting the funding that they need. I would not advocate, making homelessness is a big issue this year. Let's put money towards that, because what's Ellen's big issue may not be Judy's big issue. And if we take away from Judy's issue to give to Ellen's issue, now we create a gap in Judy's issue in the future. So while there are certain challenges facing the city itself proper does an amazing job through our community needs assessment of making sure that we're addressing those with as much money as we possibly can. Thank you.
Well, I've served on probably 25 or 30 boards across the country and here, and whether it's a scholarship or program or whatever it is, the need always exceeds the resource. It just does. I don't know, maybe that's just like the law of gravity or something. But I think that the city has a good program going. And everybody wants to get as much as they can, but you could put so much here and somebody else loses out, as Randy had said. And so one of the things I think we should kind of focus on is getting a higher level of funding. And I'm sure that there are lots of strategies to do that. Instead of $1, maybe we say $1.50 or $2. It's not that much difference at $2 a month. I mean, but what I'm saying is that we should look at the resource side of the thing, and I'm sure that they do a wonder. I've never had to go to them, fortunately, but I know that everybody says good things about them. So I think the more that we can support them, the better off we are.
I believe TCAA does an amazing job, and they do incredible work with our population here in Tempe, and I have the utmost respect for what they do. And the needs assessment that they do really details what that's going to look like. I believe, though, that it is also our responsibility as representatives of the citizens of Tempe to reach out and find out what it is that the city's citizens' needs are, so we can have a hands-on idea as to what that is looking like. So having neighborhood conversations, having living room conversations with our citizens, and having that true engagement with our population is critical. So we need to kind of get out of let them come to us, but for us to come to them also, because we work for them. We work for the citizens of Tempe. So we have to put in the work to get to know from the ground level what it is that their needs are, so we can also have input on what that is going to look like in terms of funding. So the needs assessment it's robust, but we can do better, and we should strive to do better at all times. So thank you.
So I completely support the agency review process for all the reasons that have been talked about before. It's a nonpartisan, apolitical process, which is fantastic. You don't really want your politicians, as Councilmember Keating talked about, being completely involved in that. You really want a situation where it's more about what the needs actually show as opposed to who you know. And I think that's really critically important. We've done things like that actually in other parts of the city when you think of the pavement quality index when it comes to your streets. It should not be, your street shouldn't get paved based on just simply the fact that you know the mayor or you know a member of council. It should frankly be based on what the quality of the road is and what needs to be serviced more quickly than something else. So no, I completely support agency review. I think the process should continue as it is, and I'm not suggesting any tweaks to it, but I do love Councilmember Keating's idea about tying the increases to inflation to make sure that we actually can increase the amount of funding. It's going to be very challenging over the next few years, especially the next 3, due to the repeal of the residential rental tax, which is going to cost the city somewhere between $15 and $20 million annually, starting in the beginning of 2025. So a substantial increase is probably not possible at this point because we're really going to have to tighten our belts at City Hall, and we've already budgeted very conservatively from a fiscal standpoint, but it's going to get even tighter over the next 3 years. But I do think that tying the increase to inflation would find a way to at least give some kind of gradual increases to meet the great amount of need that's currently out there.
Well, I want to compliment you all. We're doing very well here tonight. This next question, you'll understand why I made that comment. I'm going to change this question just a little bit, Sharon. I hope that's okay. All of us who watch the evening news and read the newspapers know how dysfunctional government has become, particularly on the national level, where little gets done and people would rather scream and holler and posture rather than solve problems. The world, even Tempe, is becoming a more diverse place. If you're elected, how would you work to make decisions that bring the community together and will actually solve problems?
I think one of the things that I have been good at, that I have worked really hard on, is being able to bring many different people together to try to work on finding a solution together. And it's hearing all different kinds of voices. And I think we need to do that. We need to continue to do that. We need to make sure that we are out in the community. When I got elected on the council, I thought, you know what, the first year I'm going to visit all 247 neighborhood associations and HOAs. I don't know what I was thinking. I got to 56, which I think is pretty good. But I think, being able to make sure that we're out in the community and doing outreach and being able to make sure people know that they can come and see us and knock on doors. And we will work really hard to make sure that we are trying to find the best solution to a problem, but listening to everybody. When I make decisions at the City of Tempe, I read the literature that we get. I talk to staff. I talk to both sides of the issues that might be coming up. I go to the neighborhood. I sit in the neighborhood. I go knock on doors on the businesses that are there. So I want to make sure that I'm doing everything I can to bring people in so that we don't have a lot of the agitation when it comes to actually sitting on the council and making the decision at that time. Things are difficult nationally. I think what's really amazing is that we do everything we can to not call each other names on social media, not give each other names. We are so far above that. The City of Tempe is a great community, and when we disagree, it's okay. We are still together. We are still Tempe. I think we need to work harder. I think there's a lot of negative things that are out there, but we need to work harder to remember what an incredible community this is, and that we can have differences, and those differences can make us stronger.
Yeah, so I also am very concerned about the state of the national and state discourse, and not only that, we see some of that spilling into Tempe as well. And I think what's so important about public policy is it's not personal. We have to be able to disagree with each other without being disagreeable. We don't need to go around impugning someone's motivations or sprouting conspiracies about one another or attacking a process that's been a process since the city charter because it makes good political hay in certain corners of the internet. Me and Councilmember Garland have a big disagreement on a public policy item that's coming forward soon. But you know what? After city council meetings, me and Councilmember Garland oftentimes will go share a beer and just talk about life and just be friends. And I think that's missing in too many sections of government now. And it's scary to me to see that creep starting to hit City Hall. It's actually alarming. It's one of the reasons why I'm running again. I'm endorsed by every single member of the city council. There's a reason for that. We don't always agree on everything. We're often on 4-3 votes against each other. It's because we can do it without making it personal, without making it ugly, without, again, attacking each other and berating each other. And I'm very concerned about this. If reelected, I will continue to be approachable. I will continue to be able to disagree with you and not assume malice when there is honest differences of opinion. Thank you.
My whole background is kind of based on leadership, and leadership is based on trust. And so getting people to trust you is what I've kind of been about all my life, starting when I was 19 years old and in the Army. When I got to Vietnam, I worked in the capacity that was 8 to 10 levels above my pay grade. And so it goes to, innovation, how much you want to put yourself out there, and getting people to trust you, becoming a leader, and not questioning people's motivation. I think that's a bit of a waste of time. What I'm interested in is the mission, the objective. What are our goals? Can we share some visions here? And once we kind of put those parameters down, we can work towards them. Now, there's a lot of different ways. There's more, the old saying, more than one way to skin a cat. And I believe that. And in fact, a lot of people have a lot better ideas than I do. And so I am always willing to listen and then follow through on what we mutually agree is the best way to proceed forward. And that's fun for me. I like that. I love that process.
Well, I function in a way that it really is about treating individuals that are in front of you with the utmost dignity and respect you can possibly provide, because that is really the foundation of what a relationship develops. And in the work that I do, that is really critical, right? People have to trust you in order to really work with you on some difficult things in their lives. Our nation's views and ideas and things and disagreements are really difficult. I woke up this morning and I read something in the paper that troubled me about the legislature here in our state once again attacking our LGBTQ community, and it troubled me. And that's something that we have to also learn to advocate for. We have to make sure that the level of advocacy is strong, but at the same time that it develops relationships with those people that may think otherwise from us, so that way we can actually create change. Because that's what diversity, equity, and inclusion is, and it leads to belonging. So we have to value that piece. So that's really what's important. So I want to make sure that that continues in our city.
So I think that we do a great job at community engagement in the city of Tempe, but we can always do more. I think that you're always trying to find ways to bring more people into the process and hear more ideas and more concepts for how we can improve the city of Tempe. But I think about something like the General Plan 2050, which is on the ballot March 12th. We had over 40 community meetings over a 2-year period in every single corner of the city to make sure that we were really hearing from a broad group of people in the city of Tempe. These decisions aren't made lightly, especially when you're making decisions about a 10-year plan for where our community should go. But you always can do more community engagement. But to that point, I do think that it really is the responsibility of everyone, the council and everyone in our community, to try to find ways to take the temperature down a little bit. We see a lot of what's happening nationally with people, experiencing death threats, and people who are elections officials who used to just simply count ballots. And now these people have to walk around with armed security because people are talking about rigged elections and all. I mean, imagine that you have to have a security guard just simply to go in and count ballots. I mean, that is not what our country should be about, and it's not what the city should be about. And frankly, I do see, I think Councilmember Keating said, some of that creeping into some of our politics, even locally, with people impugning people's motives and throwing around terms like corruption with absolutely zero proof whatsoever. We have a responsibility to be better than that and to behave better than that and not use language like that. The fact of the matter is, I used a quote during my MLK speech that was an MLK quote that said, "Unity does not mean uniformity." We are allowed to have differences of opinion, and reasonable people can reach different conclusions, but we should treat each other with respect.
I still haven't answered it yet.
There we are.
Oh, wait. I didn't answer
Oh,
that. Yeah. I am so sorry. It's all right, thank you. I've actually been in public policy for 25 years, and I have worked for both sides of the aisle. I have worked for Democrats, I have worked for Republicans, and in areas that would normally split the world into mainly, budget policy advising and trying to figure out how to, cut $500 million out of the state budget. And I would have to say, finding common ground at the very beginning and working from there and compromise are the key. I will bring that to the city council because I've been doing that for 25 years. In terms of the political environment, I have been very negative about it lately. I tell people whenever I'm knocking on doors, one of the things that I love about the local level and working at the local level is, potholes aren't partisan. Nobody cares if you're a Democrat, if you're a Republican, you want the pothole filled and you want it filled, tomorrow. So finding that common ground and moving on from there is just really the key to doing all of that. And public involvement, if you involve people from the beginning, they have a tie-in, even though they might not necessarily agree with what happens at the end of it, at least they were part of the process. They feel like they were involved, so a lot of that angst kind of dissipates as long as you work together as a team and understanding that your common goal is to make this community better.
that was my cue. It's time. Thank you, Janie. Next question is, again, a personal question of some sorts. Kiwanis Club and Rotary Clubs and other volunteer-based organizations exist to serve the community in meaningful ways, sometimes hands-on, sometimes by raising money. Please tell us about your own volunteer experiences in Tempe and share an activity or a moment that made a significant impact on you and on our community.
Yeah, well, definitely. So I am a member of Kiwanis, as I mentioned, and I'm also a member of Tempe Diablos. But when I first took elected office, I was approached by Downtown Tempe Authority, and they were looking for a space for kind of younger, civic-minded individuals to get involved in the city through volunteerism and through networking, and and also get involved in the business community as well. They came to me. I don't know why. I don't know why they think I'd be good at that, but at 33, I was actually pretty good at it. So we started an organization called Tempe Young Professionals, where you don't necessarily have to be that young or that professional, but we certainly we were able to get that organization up and running and bring in a lot of new people into the Tempe structure, names that you may recognize, like Rabani, for example, came out from the Tempe Young Professionals. Guys like Mike Voigt came out through the Tempe Young Professionals. So it kind of gave people a pathway. Alex Warwick, who now works for the city, I'll keep thinking of him, gave people a pathway that didn't necessarily know how to get involved in their community at the level that they wanted. They knew that they wanted to be leaders in Tempe, but they knew that they also didn't necessarily just want to go and volunteer with an organization. They wanted to do something a little bit more impactful. So that was a very rewarding experience for me. And I also did set up real quickly Joe Forte with Paul Quinn, and they started Keep Tempe Beautiful. He called me for some reason. I said, you got to talk to my friend Paul, and that organization is obviously doing great things.
I mean, again, my life of public service or public commitment started at about age 19. And so coming to Tempe gave me a whole different perspective as a student, as a veteran, going to school. My school experience as a veteran at ASU was not great. I felt really, really isolated and felt that nobody really knew where I'd been. Plus, I was going to school with people who were 5 years younger than I was. So, you know, it's so important that we connect. We make sure that everybody's taken care of. And I try to live by a couple of models. One is equal justice under law. That's hugely important. And then the last few words of the Pledge of Allegiance, right, is with liberty and justice for all, which makes it a whole lot more complicated. And so I turned inward at ASU, came up with a model, worked with Dr. Crow, and went from under 1,000 veterans going to ASU to today over 16,000 in a matter of just a few years. So I just want to continue that kind of work as we go forward.
Okay, I see my 1:30 started. One of the things that I think about is about volunteerism is really about what you do with it that is meaningful. I mean, I've been involved in the Human Relations Commission. I've been the chair of the Human Relations Commission. I've been involved with the Tardeada. But one of the things that in the Tardeada that we did that was very, very cool, I think, is really to develop the scholarship questionnaire that actually kids answer to. And what we try to do is we try to get a more introspective answer to their essay that actually talked about some struggles that they have in their lives and how they overcome it. Because I think it's important that we do that evaluation, but also we encourage kids to do that introspection to get things out in the open so they can kind of move forward in their lives. So when they come in, they talk to us about those things, and those are probably the best times that we've done in reviewing some of those scholarship opportunities. The work that I do a lot of volunteer work that is not seen, nor do I talk about because it's not allowed. So that's the way it is because it's confidential. So thank you.
In terms of volunteer service, I was a two-time president of the Ladmo branch of the Tempe Boys and Girls Club. I served on the City of Tempe's Transportation Commission prior to getting elected to the City Council in 2008. Served 6 years on the Tempe Community Action Agency Board of Directors. Served 4 years, along with Councilmember Garland, on the Newtown Community Development Corporation Board. I've been on the Landings Credit Union Board now for over a decade, and have been on the Friendship Village Board of Directors now for over a decade as well. But of course, since we're here in a forum that's actually being sponsored by the Kiwanis Club, I know some of my Kiwanis were worried I might leave that out, but I just saved the best for last. I was actually the president of the Kiwanis Club back in the 2009-2010 year, and I started out basically joining the club back in 2005 when I was sponsored in by Representative Ed Appleser. And I remember the first task I had was actually working the Halloween Carnival with Judy Aldrich, and her teaching me how to actually order toys for the kids who actually came to the Halloween Carnival in Kiwanis Park. And I went from that activity to working at the 4th of July event at Tempe Beach Park, and from there I went on to be president of that club. So I really am saying this not because we're just simply at a Kiwanis-sponsored forum, but the club has really been a second home to me. Those folks are like family, and honestly, they really took me in when I was just first a young guy in the city of Tempe who just wanted to do something good for this community.
So I have been part of nonprofits for over 25 years, not just here in the city, but in the state. I've been on a lot of boards. I can list them all. You can go on my website, amberg4tempe.com. I would say probably one of the most rewarding was when I was on the TCC board, and at the time, the state started their after-school tax credit program. And I spent months going and talking to the Tempe Union High School District Governing Board, just ensuring that the teen pregnancy program actually was going to qualify for the character education portion of those after-school programs. You would be surprised at how much of an uphill battle that was at the time, because to me it was an absolute no-brainer, but to several people who were on the board it was not. So that was very, very rewarding. I would have to say one of the most rewarding experiences now has been my time with my daughter and the National Charity League Board, because it's not just me now. It is now I'm bringing my daughter to do all of these philanthropic organizations like her. Right now she's 16 years old, and the thing that she loves doing the most is going and serving meals at La Paz de Cristo, and that is going to be something that it's inside of her now, and she is going to continue to do that as she gets older. And just to throw it back to the Tempe Kiwanis, I will say probably the hardest thing I ever done is volunteer for the 4th of July when it's 120 degrees, because I tell you I lose 20 pounds in water weight by the end of that day. So thank you. It was a lot of fun, but man, whew, those were harsh.
I think the most meaningful service that I can do is the one where I'm reaching out and actually touching somebody, sitting next to them and talking to them. And there's so many great organizations that do that in the city of Tempe. I have traveled internationally on 15 medical mission trips in 12 different countries, the poorest countries in the world, serving medical care to kids and adults. And that has burned something in my heart that's what I want to continue to do. So when I'm here in Tempe, here in Arizona, then I still look for those things where I could be serving the community of children and of seniors. And there are a lot of different ones here in Arizona and in Tempe to be able to do that. The thing that I'm really proud of is I'm part of the Tempe Women's Club, the Kiwanis Club of Tempe, Impacts Education, and South Tempe Rotary. So I'm a Rotarian and I'm a Kiwanian, so it's like ASU and U of A, the little thing there. But those are the organizations that I see are really touching our residents, that are actually out doing something. Kiwanians really look at serving the children population of the community that's reading books and collecting items, school items for the kids. And I mean, there's so many different things that you can do. One of the other things that I love doing is it's not just being a part of a service organization, but actually serving. I absolutely love doing the point in time count for the city of Tempe, where I'm actually out there speaking with our residents that are unhoused. And the other one is, as he was just mentioning, as Randy was just mentioning about Keep Tempe Beautiful, going out there and cleaning up the alleys, picking up trash. We live in this community, and that's just a great way to be able to give back. And I love, love, love volunteering there.
Question. Can we move to closing statements? Before we do that, I've learned a lot being here tonight. We are very fortunate in Tempe to have people willing to step up and serve. Each one of these are very qualified people. You've heard of their background, you've heard of their experiences, you've heard about their community service. And before we go, though, could our former Tempe City Council people, current and others, stand up? Joel, stand up for a moment, and others that are current. Yeah, let's give them a round of applause for their great service. Thank you very much. We'll go into closing statements here for each one of you, and thank you for being here, participating. Thank you for allowing Kiwanis to be the host of this. We want to be involved with the community. We appreciate what we can do, and we appreciate partnering with the city in the various things that we do. So we'll have our closing statements, and who goes first? I think Corey does, the mayor.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Keating. Well, thank you, everyone, for being here this evening, those watching at home, and for the Kiwanis Club for sponsoring this forum. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to be here. Many times people have asked, Corey, I'm actually kind of surprised that you're still attending forums and answering questionnaires, but I tell people that even if you are running unopposed, I still happen to be the mayor of the city of Tempe, and I'm still a candidate on the ballot on March 12th. And I feel it's my responsibility to still be here in front of each and every one of you, answering questions about the issues that are really critically important to the future of the city. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening. I also wanted to say very quickly as well on what Councilmember Garland talked about. You learn very fun stories. Sometimes I've learned a lot about some of the folks up here personally that I didn't know. And I will say, when Councilmember Garland told that story about the puppet rap thing that happened that evening, Councilmember Chin almost for the first time made me laugh in a meeting because the guy was such a bad ventriloquist. She sent me a text message during the meeting saying, I can see his mouth moving, and I nearly lost it. But what I can say to you all is I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. As I said when I first started, this is a great community. I have lived in the city of Tempe now for 21 years, and I've lived in a lot of different places during the course of my life, but this is the one I've been in the longest, and it's also my absolute favorite. It's home. I see myself living the rest of my life here, and I really think that our community's best days truly are ahead of it. We're going to have challenges. There are going to be some things that are going to be difficult to get through, but I honestly believe that if we pull together and work together as Tempeans, we really can achieve our most brightest and our best prosperous future. So I really appreciate all of you being here and appreciate the time, and just ask that you support me for another 4 years as mayor. So thank you so much, everyone.
Oh, are we going this way? Yeah? Okay, that's what I thought, but it's on. Okay, first of all, I want to thank everyone, every single one of you that is here tonight, that withstood an hour and 45 minutes of listening to us. That is such a wonderful thing. I am humbled to be here in front of you and to be a part of this discussion. I think one of the things that I think about in my background, coming from the little Mexican immigrant who came to the States and spoke no English, to coming to ASU and making Tempe my home, and getting all my degrees from ASU. I'm a true Sun Devil. And I never dreamt that I would actually have a doctorate degree in psychology and have the opportunity to help a lot of students in my community and things like that. I mean, it's really is a life of service, and I really want to continue that because I think it's important that we do that. It's important that we continue to put ourselves in situations that are going to be challenging, but are always going to give us the opportunity to serve the communities that we have. I just hope that at some point I can represent the Latino community as well as Mr. Navarro has in the last 16 years, because it's just an awesome thing to do, and I welcome that. We have a thriving Hispanic community here in Tempe, and I want to be a part of that. So thank you for allowing me to participate and allowing me to be a part of this discussion, and I look forward to that. Thank you.
I don't know what I'm going to do with 2 minutes here. Again, yeah, thanks everybody for coming out. You know, it's a school night. you've probably all put in a long day's work, so thank you very much for being here. I kind of keep coming back to the idea of leadership, and because that's kind of the way I was raised, that's the way I'm built, and that's the way I perceive things. And so I was honored when I was in the Army to be decorated for valor and for meritorious service by 2 countries. I got to Arizona State University and graduated with honors. I was inducted into the Arizona Veterans Hall of Fame for my service, not only in the military, but to my community. These are really, really important things. And then yesterday, I was honored to receive my, I guess, official notification for being a part of the it's an organization that recognized me for my professional ethics and my community service. Who's Who in America. So I'm looking forward to an opportunity, if you give me the chance, the opportunity to serve once again at a different level, in a different way. But my whole focus would be to bring honor, creativity, empathy, and leadership to the City Council and to the citizens of Tempe. Thank you very much.
Folks, I hope my knowledge and passion for the city has come through tonight. But I hope something else has become apparent. I'm having fun. Like, this is fun. The campaigning is grueling, but it is so great to get in front of people and talk about what you've done and what you want to do, to lay out a vision for people. If you're doing this for the celebrity, I can tell you it wears off very, very quickly. You have to want to make a positive impact in your community. And because of the record I have, I can say with full confidence and satisfaction that I made a tremendous impact for Tempeans of all quality of life. Serving the people of Tempe has been the honor and privilege of my life. I am a poor kid from the Rust Belt who came to Arizona with $400 in a backpack and slept on a couch for the first 6 months he was here. Everything I have, I've earned for myself, and I never ever thought when I was a young man laying on that couch that I would ever have the opportunity to serve my community in such a meaningful way. I'm so proud of the work that I've done. I'm so proud of the city that we have. I agree with the mayor. I believe Tempe is still that shining city. Our better days are most definitely ahead of us. All of Tempe's problems are a result of people wanting to be here, of people wanting to come and live in our community and share our experience of such a well-run, such a positive city, a city where the city council isn't at each other's throats, where you don't catch us, attacking each other in the press or in the social media, where we engage with each other civilly. Take a look at my record, whether I'm your favorite candidate or your least favorite candidate, there's no doubt that you will see I've worked on something that you will appreciate. Folks, you get 3 votes in this election, and I would respectfully request you use one of those votes to allow me to continue to do my good work. Randy Keating, randykeating.com, not related to Charles Keating.
I first want to say thank you to the Kiwanis groups for hosting us tonight. We really appreciate those. Were great questions, especially throwing a really fun one in there in the middle. That was really a nice way to kind of lighten up the room a little bit, because we do get a little nervous when we first get up here and get started. But I just want to say, I want to continue the work that I have done on City Council. I want to really continue to work with our residents. As a lot of you know, I leave Monday through Friday from 7:30 to 9:30 open every morning, every week, for our residents and our businesses, and anybody who wants to call and talk to me and sit and have a coffee with me to talk about the city of Tempe, something that an issue that they see they'd like worked on, something they like in the city of Tempe, whatever it is. I'm open to do that, because I think it's really important to continue to keep those lines of communication open, and I want to continue to do that. The other thing that I've really enjoyed being on City Council is also the opportunities that we have to be able to work nationally and regionally. I'm on the Maricopa Association, Maricopa up a Association of Governments board for the local jurisdiction, which talks about homelessness and affordable housing on a regional map. And then I'm also on the National League of Cities. I just was appointed to the board of directors. So with those things, I'm also able to get ideas and talk to people in other places to bring those ideas and possible solutions that they have to issues that we are looking at and trying to find ways to address those here in the city of Tempe. So I want to be able to continue to work nationally, regionally, and locally to solve the problems with you that are going to make our city better. I really enjoy the time that I've had on city council. I've enjoyed the time working with the council members that I've have, and knowledgeable. If I would say something about your idea, I would just knowledgeable would have been the word I would have used for you. But I just want to say that I've enjoyed this time, and I'd like to continue the work that I have with you on city council for the next 4 years. So I hope that out of your 3 votes, you'll be looking at Doreen Garland for one of those. You can go onto my website, garlandfortempe.com, and you can get some more information about me. And please, seriously, reach out. I'd love going out for coffee in the morning.
I know where you're going.
I just wanted to, again, to thank the Kiwanis clubs, all 3 of them, and actually everybody that's actually watching online on Channel 11. And as a former, public government staffer, I would also like to thank the hardworking city of employees who have not, this is the 3rd forum that they've come in and helped to put on, and this is after hours for them, so for them to do that has just been fantastic. My years of public service, my years of community involvement, I almost feel like I'm kind of the perfect candidate going up here. I know all of the public policy. I have been enmeshed with the community for 25 years, but yet I'm still going to be a fresh voice. This is the first time I have ever run for public office. It has been completely eye-opening for me. I totally apologize to all of the other candidates that I've ever worked for that I used to yell at and tell them that they were lazy. And that they just needed to get up and do it if they really wanted to win. I get it now, so I'm so sorry. Again, if you guys could give me one of your 3 votes, that would be fantastic. I would be so appreciative. ambergfortempe.com. I'm going to stay after as well. If you guys got any other questions, I would be more than happy to talk with you. My door is always opened. I'm the one that answers the emails whenever you email from my website, so it's actually me, and it's not a bot, so don't make it X-rated, because a few people have done that as well, and a little bit, yeah, they're a little bit embarrassed whenever I reply back, no, it's actually me, it's Nikki. So again, thank you again for coming out, and have a great rest of your week.
So I'm Sharon Doyle, and I'm the Lieutenant Governor for the Southwest District Division 10, which encompasses the 3 Kiwanis clubs that helped put this together tonight. I've got a couple of thank yous. Some of them are going to be redundant, but everybody does deserve a great thank you. To the City of Tempe for scheduling the 3 public forums. This is the last one, and ballots drop next week, so I'm encouraging everyone to please vote. I'm thanking the candidates that are running. It's not an easy job, but thank you for your dedication and thank you for showing up. I'd like to thank our moderator, Don Fletcher, even though he was just a smidgen late. You did a great job, Don. Thank you so much. And every person that's in the audience, I'd like to thank them for participating and attending and for their civic interest in the city council election. We get an extra day this month. It's the 29th. It's a leap year. So I'm hoping that all of you might think about doing what the Kiwanis Club members have dedicated themselves to, and that is serving the children of the world. So consider that and have safe travels home, and thank you again for participating. If all Kiwanians can come up, we'd really like to get a photo, and I wish you a very good night. Thank you.